In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. First, I want to say to those that are watching online or are watching an archived version of this on YouTube or some other place, that we welcome you to any of the videos that this church produces. We do it not because we have this insane belief that we are like the most watchable people in the world, but because we hope that you will be edified and blessed by this. But what I do want to talk a little bit about is my experience as a mission priest and some of the observations that I've made. I've been a priest for 10 years, been at this mission for 10 years, and so essentially that's all of my priesthood has been spent in an area where, in fact, when we first came, to our knowledge, there was only one Orthodox Christian, and there turned out to be a few more than that, but not a lot more than that. And now 10 years later, we can look back and we can see some things. But I want to start that with kind of a little bit of my own story, because I think my own experience in coming to Orthodoxy, I was not born into the church, but my own experience in coming to Orthodoxy, it helps me to understand, I think, that sometimes what people are going through and what drives them and what is the motivation for them to seek something entirely different from what they once knew. So in my case, my early experience in childhood with any kind of Christianity or church was really no more than a glancing blow. That my parents started out being fervent members of their Protestant church, that they fell away from it when I was still very young. And then after that, I essentially had little or no contact with any church for a long time. And spent a lot of years. If anybody asked me what I believed, I told them I was an atheist. And I don't know how sincere I was on that, and I probably vacillated back and forth a little bit. But there are times when I was not only telling people I was an atheist, but I was extremely hostile towards Christianity. I might have been kind of a proto-nun, although I'm a baby boomer through and through. But at my impression of Christianity in my teens in particular and into my early 20s, was that it was essentially a money-making scheme. It was a way in which people had a business and that they took other people's money to support whatever this particular ministry or business to do that. And this was largely born from my seeing every once in a while televangelists on TV or the healing people, send your money, we'll put you on the prayer list, you'll be healed or whatever. And it was a very, very negative perception of Christianity and of religion in general. My friends were the same way. One of my best friends was a Wiccan, and she was a great person. I knew other people that had other beliefs, and this was the period of time when AIDS first started appearing, and I had friends that died of AIDS in the late 1970s. And so there was very little belief in the circles that I traveled in. And people, if they had beliefs, they kind of kept them to themselves. I really did not know very many people that professed to be Christian at all. Well, what happened to me happened in the mid-1980s, probably 86 or 87. And I say this, and when I say this, I think that what happened to me happens to a ton of people, that it was not in any way whatsoever unique. But I'd reached kind of a point in my life where I was a little disgruntled. I'm still disgruntled, but a little disgruntled, a little despondent. I remember one summer day, I was cutting the grass in the yard, for Pete's sake. Talk about an exciting spiritual adventure. But I was doing it, and I was disgruntled and all this despondent. And all of a sudden, there was a voice in my head, I swear to you, that said, it doesn't have to be this way. That's all it said. It didn't say, go to Jesus. It didn't say, go to the church. It didn't say anything. It just said, it doesn't have to be this way. Now, I remember that clearly. It made a huge impression on me, even though it's a little bit amorphous. And I didn't really know what to make of it. I just knew that there was some other way to go. There was some other way to live. And so it began a journey for Pani and I that lasted for another 15 years or so until we became Orthodox. And Pani was already a Christian. She was way ahead of me. But we started going to different churches. We went through a number of churches. Our criteria was mostly which one would be best for the kids, or we thought would be best for the kids. So, we went through Presbyterian and Baptist. We went to several different churches. The Methodist church. We ended up at the Methodist church. And so we did all of these things. And it helped. But it did not provide the answer or the solution to the kind of the mystery that had been put into my head, that it doesn't have to be this way. What I found were I found very holy people. I found people that sincerely believed. I found people that tried their very best to follow Christ. And then I also found people who would not, for the life of them, ever admit that life was anything but a bowl of cherries, who would not for the life of them admit that they themselves, even in the church and even in the midst of being a Christian all their life, had any sorrow, had any problems, had any troubles, had anything that challenged them in any way. And it struck me throughout all that period of time, it struck me as being inartful. It struck me as being willfully blind, because everybody knows they've got challenges and knows they have troubles and knows that their life is not perfect and knows all of these things. But despite that, they continue to put up a facade. And the facade was just deadly. It was deadly because either you saw through it and you saw it as not being a true facade, or you didn't see through it and you thought, why isn't my life that way? What am I missing? Why am I suffering? Why am I going through these trials? And so it just never really seemed right. Well, I think a lot of people in the church know that I discovered Orthodoxy completely by accident, I guess is the easiest way to say it. And then, like a lot of other people, I read my way into the church. Read for like 2 years, something like that, before I ever walked in the door. And once I walked into the door, and this is going to apply to something I say a little bit later on when I talk about how we should be looking at people that come through the door. When I walked through the door the first time, it was in a Russian church in North Atlanta. And they were serving in Slavonic, and I still know no Slavonic at all. And it was there for a vigil on a Saturday night before liturgy of the next day on Sunday. And in the Russian tradition, you're supposed to go and take confession or give confession every time before you take communion. And so it was a pretty good crowd. People were wandering in and out. The choir was there and they were singing and there were 2 priests. And I walked in and I really had no conception at all, not only of what they were saying, but because I didn't know the structure of the services, I didn't even know what they were doing. But everybody seemed engaged. And so I stand there, because everybody's standing, right? To my recollection, there were no chairs. I stand there, and after about 15 minutes, I look at my watch, and I notice that 15 minutes has gone by. And then I stand there some more, and the next time I think to look at my watch, it is 3 hours later. And I had simply and completely lost any sense of time during that. The service is going on around me. People are moving around. They're going up. People are going to confession over in this corner. They're closing the doors. They're opening the doors. They're coming in and out. The choir is singing. They keep doing all this stuff. That particular parish had who knows how many guys in cassocks. They must have a ton of readers, guys in cassocks going back and forth and back and forth. The activity never ceased, but I did not mark the passage of time in any of that. What happened to me that day was that the Transcendent caught up with me. I was overwhelmed by the Transcendent. Even when I did not know what it was or what it meant, it was all around me and it rolled over me, and all I could do was stand there and let it do that. My only alternative would have been to get up and leave. To say, well, this is too weird. I can't do this. We've had people come in here that go, this is too weird. I can't do this. But the church, when a seeker comes in, there are two things or several things to think about. The first is that every person that comes in here that is not Orthodox, that is wondering what on earth is going on here, has behind them some experience like I had, more or less. Some moment in time when they were led to believe or they were given to understand that there is more to life than just life. There is more to life than just our daily activity. There's more to life than whatever it is we do 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There's more. It doesn't have to be that way, is essentially what everybody that walks into this house, into this church, this temple, comes to understand. Whether that has happened just recently or it may have happened years ago. Like in my case, it was at least 15 years before I ever walked into a church. But there's something in back of that person which is driving them. It may be disillusionment. It may be a search for beauty. It may be just a pull that they do not understand, but they come. And they come in here. And then you can see them. I mean, they're just like me that first time, right? They're looking around. They're like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what they're doing. Why do they keep going in and out of those doors? Why is the music weird? All of these things. And so we have these people who I can identify with that walk into the church, where they are seeing something new and something confusing and something on some level which is awe-inspiring because it is unlike anything they have ever seen in their life before. So when we have these seekers come in, we have to understand that these are not just random people who wander in the door. And in a lot of ways, this has to inform the way in which, well, certainly the way in which we've done mission work over the last 10 years. You know, we don't go out in the street corners and preach. We do try to be visible. We do try to be open. But in many respects, I think we are waiting, just like these people are waiting, for that message that it doesn't have to be this way, starts to take ground and starts to take root in their souls, and they start looking for something. And then many times they find us. So when they come in, they may be searching, they may just be looking generally for something. Sometimes they come in, and maybe this was more true in our previous location, when they come in despair and in kind of a bottomed out kind of situation. They may come in because in their lives there is some confusion and they have doubt that their old tradition has not really addressed these things that are troubling them or driving them wild. It does not address the things that frighten them, that scare them, that terrify them. And then sometimes they come in because of conflict somewhere else. And they want peace. And they want the ability to find God. And they come from a background that for one reason or another, there's not been peaceful. Maybe the family has not been peaceful. Maybe their old church has not been peaceful. We don't know. But we know when people come in, they come in because they have, if you will, been led to come here. It's not to say they're all going to stay. But whenever they come in, I think that what's important for us to do is to understand that it's not initially. It's not up to us to go and to talk to these people and be persuasive and persuade them right then and there of the fact that it is the first church, it's the real church, it's been around forever and ever, it's not going anywhere. That'll come. First time when they come, what we need to do is to let the liturgy roll over them. We need to let the service become, like it was for me, just an overwhelming part of life during that period of time. Do you know, no one talked to me when I was in that Russian church until, the 3-hour part, whatever it was. And there was a young priest there, Father Vyacheslav. And Father Vyacheslav was in his 20s. I think he's in Canada somewhere now. And he kind of comes up to me. He goes, "Hey, this is the best kept secret in America." And then he gave me a bunch of stuff to take home and read. But that was it. That was all that there was. And it's very effective. And so that's number one. Let the mystery be present. Let the mystery be what this seeker, this visitor, is faced with, and let them face the mystery. For a long time, I've tried to persuade people not to give out pew books to people that are visiting without any particular success. But I think for people that are just here, pew books do nothing but confuse the situation. Because then people are flipping around trying to figure out where they are, and it can be kind of a confusing thing, and so they lose the attention. They lose the attention or the experience of letting the mystery of the church roll over them. So that's one thing that I have found to be very, very important. The second thing, and this has to do with the period of catechism or catechetical teaching, has to do with the fact that that's really a two-part thing. On the one hand, yes, we are teaching history and theology and liturgics and all of the things that go with the church. But on the other hand, we're also learning from these people. And we are learning from people whether or not they are in love. Are they falling in love with the mystery of the church? And most people do. And they do it without really thinking about it, but it becomes a part of their life. And you can see in people that it becomes this inescapable thing. It's not an obligation. It's not just a Sunday morning thing to do, but it becomes a part of their life. And it's when those two things mesh, when the education on the one hand and the falling in love on the other hand, when they come together in the same person, that then we start talking about, well, maybe we should read the prayers of the catechumens to make a catechumen. Maybe it's time to start thinking about coming into the church. So this is something that, from my point of view, just in my experience, is important. And the things that hinder us are all the things that Subdeacon Maximus has been talking about, and we'll talk about some more through the rest of the afternoon. There are huge cultural problems, and there are huge gaps and discrepancies in the way that people understand not only themselves, they understand themselves very differently, but they understand other people, they understand various types of other people, they understand the culture in which we live. All of these things can have the effect of separating them from God and separating them from really being accepting of any kind of experience of the transcendent. At lunch a little while ago, we were talking, and Jim said something that I thought was very meaningful. He was talking about how nowadays, if you want to go out and see the Milky Way or the stars in the sky, you can't just go outside and maybe walk away from the street light a little bit and look up in the air and see those things. We can't do it. You have to go to some trouble to see those things, to see the stars in the sky, to see real beauty, to see God's world. It's not just all around us so much anymore. It is to a certain extent. But to really see it, to really experience it, we have to take a little bit of a trip. And we have to be committed to what we are going to do. And sometimes people have to find that need within themselves. In our society, we very much want an off-the-shelf answer. We very much want something that is easily available, that's easily digestible, so to speak, that is something that can just be handed to us, and we are there. We're there. That person is there. We've never been that way. The church has always been cautious about bringing people in unless they were truly committed. In the early church, that meant a catechumenate of at least 3 years before people were brought into the church by baptism. And so nowadays, we're a lot shorter than that nowadays. I think it's probably good, because I don't know how many people are going to last 3 years before they come in. So how do we assist this process? Because we know that for people that are coming and are interested and are letting the church wash over them, we know that for them this is a real journey. And most of you guys came into the church, like me, came in from a different tradition, and it always has challenges. People are like, icons. You see people kiss icons. You see people that, they see us venerate the Theotokos. They see us talk about the saints. And all this is completely different from what most people are used to. And so it's a struggle for them. How can we, as just the members of this parish, assist them in that struggle? The first thing I would say, and the most important thing, is that we must be humble. We must have humility. And what I mean by that is that I don't know that it really helps us to be able to, to go up to a person and say what is really the truth, which is we've been around since AD 33. Your church only started 100 years ago, or whatever the case may be. We need to be humble. What people need to learn from us is to see in us that we are, in fact, devout Orthodox Christians, so that they can see what it looks like to be a member of this church, to see what it looks like to be an Orthodox Christian in all of the fullness that goes with that. They need to see us praying. They need to see us engaged in liturgy. They need to see us participating in the fast during the appropriate times of the year. They need to see us living everyday life as Orthodox Christians. There's a story from the Fathers, and I cannot remember who it was, but I would say it's probably one of the Egyptian desert fathers, where somebody asked him, he said, well, what if all the Gospels in the world were destroyed? And the father said, well, from looking at our lives, they should be able to rewrite them. And that's actually true, and it's something we all fall down on, but that is something we should strive for. People should see within us, in the church, the Gospels being lived out, the fruition, if you will, of the Gospels. And so that's the first thing. We have to be humble. We have to be welcoming to whoever it is. All kinds of people come in, and in all of them have the image of God within them, and whoever it is, and whatever they are, whatever their politics are, whatever their anything is, that's fine. They're here. And God has brought them here. So we need to be accepting of people. The other thing that I would say is this, is that for all of these people, when they come in, we, at the same time, we give them an understanding, we understand to the best that we can whatever their problems may be. And they may not ever tell you about that, but they may say, I always just had a problem with whatever, this, that, or the other thing. And if that happens, then we should extend our heart to them. Now, yes, some people come in and they may be doing things that if they become members that we just can't allow them to do and have them have communion. But that's not for us to talk about just in one-on-one conversation. That's to be talked about during conversations with me or for the bishop to take care of, or whatever the case may be. We should be open and welcoming and understanding of where people are coming from as best we can. So on the one hand, we show them the love of God. On the other hand, we show them what being loved by God looks like. And that would be in our particular behavior, in our worshipfulness, in the way in which we live our lives. So that's kind of what I had in mind, and I hope that if we kind of think along those lines, and then we take the specific facts that Max has been talking about, that we'll have a better understanding about this, so that the next time that God sends somebody, or if you're out of church and you run into somebody that seems to be questioning or seeking, and you can say, well, you ought to come to St. Nicholas someday, then we know how to greet these people and how to relate to these people. Because these people are not just people wandering in and out of the church. These people, if God is sending them here, these people will be our brother or our sister. If they have children, they will have the children in the church and they will be our future. And so nobody comes in randomly. Nobody comes in without a meaning. Nobody comes in without being important to us from that very moment.